Today's faith question comes to us from a young couple who are involved in the medical field. And the question that they are asking is very specific, but it touches on a very important subject, I think, as regards to relationship and privacy. So the scenario is this. One of the members in a married couple finds out that they have a diagnosis from the doctor that they may have something like cancer, but they're not sure yet. And they need to do some additional tests in order to determine whether or not it's actually cancerous or not. And the question is, are we obliged, as Catholics, are we obliged to share that information with our spouse? Are we obligated to tell them that this is going on? Because we have that instinct that, well, it's not for sure yet, and I don't know how they're going to react, and I want to protect them. And perhaps this is meaningless anyways, and it's unnecessary. So, but on the other hand, there's a part of us that if we're the spouse, we would want to know, wouldn't we? And we would be upset if we knew that the other person was withholding that information from us. So there are a lot of levels to this question. So let's start with the moral level specifically. Are we obliged to share that kind of information? Is it a sin to withhold information, important information, from our spouse? And the Catechism of the Catholic Church does not specifically talk about that scenario. The closest thing that I could find is paragraph 2492. It's in the section that is talking about the 8th commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not deceive. Right? That's sort of the idea behind the 8th commandment. And certainly, we believe that lying is wrong. Lying is a sin. But there's a difference between lying and withholding information, is there not? Because withholding information is simply not divulging the whole truth. And that's different than lying, which seeks to change reality or to tell someone something that's not actually true. There would be a deeper sense of betrayal there. So you can't lie about it, morally speaking. But you are not obliged to share what is going on. So that's the moral component, which doesn't really touch at the heart of the question. It kind of leaves it up in the air, because there's some information that may be very, very harmful to withhold from your spouse. Because what happens when you start withholding information? The intimacy that you share, that gift of self that you have, when you start withholding information, it starts to create a rift, right? There's a distancing between you and your spouse, or your significant other even, in any kind of relationship. And then there starts to become this chasm that's built up, right? And that chasm can widen if we're not careful. So I think we know instinctually the danger that there is in withholding information from our spouse. And that's why it might not be sinful, but it really takes a lot of reflection, I think, to be able to try to understand what the right thing to do is in that situation. The Church has a deep respect for the privacy of persons, and that's actually what's at the heart of 2492. It's speaking about the importance of privacy, that we have a right to the privacy of our own thoughts, of our own desires, because every time we have a sinful inclination or a desire, let's say we see somebody and, our attention is grabbed and we lust over that person for a moment. Is it a sin to withhold that information from our spouse? I have to imagine not. It's simply a momentary desire. But if it becomes something deeper, then it's a different question, isn't it? At that point, it's more difficult, it's more sensitive. And that's a hard thing to know what the right thing to do is. So let's focus on the question of why people tend to withhold information. In the end, it's about protection, isn't it? It's about protecting them from something that would hurt them, something that would upset them, something that might make them angry or hurt. And in the end, that doesn't seem like it's worth going there. And in that sense, you have to understand your relationship. You have to understand the person. You have to understand the context behind what it is that you decide to do. The church cannot tell you what to do in that situation. At least I can't stand here in the abstract and tell you what to do. I really can't. But discernment and reflection and thinking about it can be helpful to try to determine, am I doing this for the right reason? Am I doing this to protect the other person? Or am I doing this to protect myself? And maybe it's a little bit of both. And if that's the case, we need to purify that and try to figure out what is really going on there. Whatever it is, it ought to be at the service of the relationship. And in that sense, I'd like to share a little bit of an anecdote about somebody who desired to protect their spouse. The spouse had grown sick, went to the hospital, and the spouse took care of the finances because person A, if you will, person A was not very good at managing money. And in the relationship, their spouse took care of all of that stuff. But now they're in the hospital, so they take on those responsibilities. Spouse comes home from the hospital, and this person is really struggling and doesn't pay all the bills on time. And this person becomes embarrassed at their inability to take this task on that they've always struggled with. But now they feel obliged to do it because the spouse has so much going on in his or her life that they don't want to burden their spouse with this. They have enough going on. I should be able to do this. But the question we have to ask, maybe if we turn it around, I would ask that person, do you think that your spouse feels worthy of being a spouse right now? Do you think that they think that they're holding their own in the relationship? And the answer was, well, no, I don't think they do. So could it perhaps be that by you admitting to this person, hey, I can't do this without you. I need you right now. I tried. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. But I need you. Think about the dignity that is restored to that person. Yes, they have more to think about. They have more to worry about. But think about the dignity that they have of feeling needed in that situation, of realizing that they are not just a passive receiving in this relationship because they're sick. There's an active portion that they are capable of helping the person who wishes to protect, who feels like the strong one. But we're all weak. And we all desire to be strong. And to hear from your spouse, I need you, that gives you a nice little boost, doesn't it? And I think out of protection, we often deprive people of that dignity, of that recognition. No, I do need you. So perhaps in reflecting on whether or not you should share something with your spouse, especially if it's embarrassing, it's worth asking the question, is this going to help the relationship? Is this going to help this person to feel like I need them? Because I do. In a sense, you are admitting, I can't do it by myself, I need you. And that's a worthy reflection. The church cannot tell you what to do. I cannot tell you what to do. But perhaps in your heart of hearts, you know your spouse, you know your relationship, and you can take it to the Lord. You can come and talk to me, a priest. You can talk to a friend about it. Really reflect and trust that God will place on your heart what the right thing is to do. God bless, and we'll see you next time.